Hi, I have a large collection of Looney Labs games. The boxes are small, so they tend to get misplaced or they don't always sit so great on my shelves. So I purchased this Looney Labs crate here, and I want to share with you how I put it together, painted it, assembled it, and the final result. The crate here is Baltic birch. It's 3 pieces. You have the lid, the box, and then an insert that goes inside of the box. Right there we have some felt feet for the bottom so that it doesn't get scratched up. The outside box is nice and thick, and the top features the logo and the name nice and big. So first things first, I want to wipe off the edges and the pieces themselves. The wood cutting laser tends to leave residue in the joints, and I don't want that to get caught up in the glue. So I'll wipe off every piece and move on to dry fitting. When I was dry fitting the pieces, it was a very tight fit, and I didn't want to risk breaking them, pulling them apart. So I decided to skip the dry fitting altogether and go straight to gluing. When gluing the pieces, you'll see I put a dab of glue in each cutaway and then spread it out with a toothpick. This just helps to ensure that there's a nice hold on all the pieces. First, I'll try to fit the piece in myself, but I can only tend to get it so far, so I'll use my rubber mallet just to hammer it down a little bit, being careful not to damage the wood too much. And I'll repeat this process for all the other pieces. So right now we are assembling the bottom half of the box. Hammering these pieces, I want to make sure that they're nice and flush so that there aren't any gaps between the joints. If there are any gaps, then we can go back in with some of the wood glue to try and fill that in. These are the sides of the box, and while I'm filling this in, I'm going to start thinking about how I want to paint or stain this box. I found that Looney Labs has a couple different color logos. They have this white and black logo, but I think a white box would look too plain on my shelf. They have a black and white logo, but kind of a similar issue. Looking on their Twitter account, they use a turquoise and purple logo, tie-dye, with the white font. I'm not so sure how to get that tie-dye effect just yet. But I found on their web store they have a turquoise and purple logo. I really like turquoise, and I think it'll look nice on the shelf. So I've finished assembling everything. I'm going to go ahead and put it in this insanely long band clamp and let it dry. After that's finished, then I'll go ahead and start building the lid. It's the same process as before, putting glue in all the cutouts and spreading the glue around. I'm thinking about painting the outside of the box and then maybe staining the inside. A nice dark stain I think would contrast with the turquoise pretty well. Here again, I'm just hammering in the pieces for a nice tight fit. While the lid dries, I'm going to go in with the bottom of the box and fill in any of the gaps. So that involves just putting a dab of glue on a gap, spreading it in with a toothpick, and then wiping off the excess glue with a damp paper towel. I'll repeat that process for every joint on this box. Once that's finished, I'm going to sand the pieces to begin staining and priming. An added benefit to sanding this box, it'll help remove some of the glue from the joint filling. Now I'm going in with the Minwax Red Oak stain, putting just a small amount on the towel and wiping the majority of it off. Applying the stain early will make sure I have enough time to apply a second stain. I'll make sure to put the stain on the edges, at least the edges that show, and cover both sides, wiping off excess. Once the staining is complete, I'll stain the bottom of the box. Because the red oak stained insert will sit inside of the box, I want to make sure to get the bottom of the box to make it look like a more complete piece of wood. I'm not too worried about getting the corners completely stained because the insert will cover them up. While the stain dries, I'm going to go ahead and tape off wherever I don't want any of the primer to go. So this is the lid here, and I want to keep that raw edge of the wood so that I can stain it later. Now I'm outside just priming in a flat white. I'm hoping the white will help the turquoise pop a little. And as the primer dries, I'll go ahead and apply a second coat of the stain. The second coat really darkens things up and gives the wood pieces a nice color. Now I'll begin assembling the insert, gluing it into place, deciding which sides I want facing in and which sides I want facing out. And I'll put this in the band clamp as well, ensuring a nice tight fit. And once that's dry, I'll go ahead and put it in the box. In hindsight, I wish I had waited to do this step. By having the insert in the box, I had to be more careful when I was painting, and it made sanding the edges a little more tricky. At this point, I'm gluing the insert into place so that it does not slip out. Cleaning up a sneaky bit of glue with a damp paper towel, and any glue that seeped out from pressing in the insert. Now I'll begin painting. Here I have some cheap craft paints, and shake it up and mix in some water. I want to try to thin the paint as much as possible to avoid any streaking. Go back in with different coats. I want to try to alternate brush strokes just so that it hides the brush strokes from the coat before. And when painting the lid, I'm not too worried about getting paint in the letters or the logo that I'm going to paint purple later. Usually when staining an insert, if I want to put some paint into little letters, I'll just go ahead and glop the paint in as much as possible and then wipe it off with a wet paper towel. But here I'm going to use a diluted purple paint inside of the logo, so I'm not too worried about getting any turquoise in there. And while the lid dries, I'll go ahead and paint some stain onto the edges of the box. And I'll do the same for the lid, and I'll start painting a sort of trim line on the edge of the box with the turquoise, just to make that very edge look a little neater. This project was a lot of fun to do. I really enjoy making these types of inserts. They just make things look so much nicer. A lot of times they help organize things as well. This will organize all my Looney Labs games into one crate, so if I want to play one I can just pull out the crate and they're all right there. No need to hunt around on the shelves for that little box that fell in between something or is hiding behind another larger box. Now that the painting is finished, I'll apply 2 coats of a polyurethane gloss varnish. This varnish will help protect the paint job from any scratches or chips from the wear and tear of handling the box. I'll also apply these felt feet. The felt feet will protect the bottom of the box from scratching on whatever it's sitting on. And with that, my new box is done. The gloss varnish really helps the turquoise paint shine. I wasn't too happy with the purple paint, it was very streaky, but for only 48 cents, it's okay. You see the inside of the lid there, I decided to paint purple, and I'm also really happy with how the stain turned out. One thing I like about the stain is that it shows the wood grain. All that's left now is to load it up with my games. This insert can hold 8 of their regular sized games. It can also hold the Are You a Werewolf, the thinner version, and of course Tiny Flux. One thing it doesn't hold all that great is the larger Flux boxes. You can sit them in like that or even lay them down, but it takes up so much space. Even the Zombie Flux box fits, but I'm not going to keep it in there because I don't want those metal parts to scratch anything. This was a really fun build, and I'm glad I got to share it with you. I can't wait to show you what's next. Thanks for watching.